So I thought I was through the worst of it when I made the videos at the park the other day, but I wasn't. So I still don't even know if it's a good idea to talk to myself, but I feel like I need a new life strategy than the one I've had this last year or so, because this one has failed. I've failed to talk myself out of the mental health system. I'm back on Seroquel and I'm tapering myself onto lithium again, and I'm not sure if it's a good idea to do this without the help of a psychiatrist. Yet I feel like it's hard to do stuff, so even making a call to make an appointment is hard, and then I can't drive right now that far, so I'd need someone's help to drive me. And so I feel like by trying to be strong, I don't know. And I haven't showered probably since the last time I made videos, and I was in bed all day yesterday. And right now I'm trying to color, kind of like people do in the psych ward. And yeah, this has been really, 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 really challenging. I feel like now I just feel like I'm a bad person, not like I have a mental illness, but I have the bad person. And the other day I was sitting outside and talking to somebody, and then somebody went away, and then a hummingbird came right up to me, right in front of my face, and hovered there. It came underneath the patio to hover in front of me. So it seems like there's this thing where the joy is there somewhere, but I'm not able to connect with it. And this whole time I've been trying to prove a point or make something happen for other people. Like there's no such thing as mental illness, or we can overcome it, and things like that. And that may be true, but it doesn't seem true right now. Yet, it seems like the mental illness interpretation is the most helpful, yet it's hard to believe it. And then by being on the micronutrients, I sort of saw more of what I'm struggling with, and it just seems so vast, it's hard to know what to do. And maybe just being present in the moment, but that's challenging. And yeah, I have a lot to say, but I don't know how much I should talk to myself right now. Feels like by talking to myself, I've spent all this time developing this relationship with myself, but now that that has broken, I'm very lost and fragile. And so I've been taking Seroquel, and I took one this morning and one last night with trazodone and a bit of lithium, and I took some lithium this morning. So I'm playing with fire, really. I probably should try to call my psychiatrist. And sometimes I think I'm not going to get through this, but in the past I have. It feels like that really challenging hospitalization in April 2016, but I'm not in the hospital. And that was 33 days. So I'm not at 33 days yet. That would be early November. So yeah, I should probably call my psychiatrist and see if I could get in there. And I've failed on everything that I was trying to do. Like, that's the other hard part of this, is that every single thing I was trying to do was now back at zero, back at square one. And so yeah, it's difficult. I feel probably quite depressed about that. But dealing with the subtle psychosis is more difficult. So yeah, I don't know what to do. I feel ashamed. I feel like everything's my fault. And I've done all this to myself, and that's a dangerous way to feel, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel hopeful. This morning I had some sense of enjoyment while drinking coffee. That was nice. And I'm going to try and have a shower. Maybe go out for a little walk or something. And I feel like now I'll try to fix this personal problem again, which I didn't want it to be personal, but it feels so personal, like it hurts a lot. And then I'm thinking, like, I spent so much time with myself, talking to myself, that I haven't worked on relating with others and just being kind. And a lot of times I felt like, oh, I want to go talk to myself, as opposed to being with people. And I think I just don't know how to be with people sometimes. Or I'm afraid to, because sometimes it leads to not so good things. So, yeah, I've had lots of coffee, and I feel like my body gets really weak all of a sudden today. Like my arms, I feel like I'm gonna collapse, or my arms feel like, I don't know, they feel strange. And then this is a really silly thing to talk about right now, but the iPhone pre-order is tonight, and I feel like if I really have faith in myself, I will just order it, because it'll symbolize that I can keep going. And I wonder if I'll be okay to start my business course, and I want to be able to, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I just live simply, like get a dog, like a chihuahua or a cat, and just live simply, be kind, be where I am. I'll try to do something huge. Maybe do photography, the iPhone, and not think I can fix something so huge, because when I try to do that, then I have to fix myself. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of things that I seem to be able to ignore at some certain point, and I don't know if that's good or bad. And yeah, I hope I can get through this episode. And yeah, I admit I failed at everything I was trying to do. I was trying to not be on meds. I was trying to be healthy, happy. And then this process comes in and shows me all the reasons why that's not possible. And I'm really sorry for all of everything that... So yeah, I don't know about the iPhone. I feel maybe this one's good enough. Especially if I can barely use it right now. So I managed to have a shower even though I was really scared. And I don't know if I mentioned I've lost a lot of weight. I tried to weigh myself, but the scale isn't working. And then I was thinking maybe I won't get the new iPhone, but then I was trying to delete a few emails on my phone and it was frozen. So this phone really isn't working very well. And I still haven't called to make an appointment with my psychiatrist. But I think I need to because I will need a refill of medication at some point. So yeah, I really wonder if I should stop talking to myself and admit failure, complete, catastrophic failure. And I thought maybe I was going to show that it's possible to transcend and all that crap that I made up. But I think all it shows is what it's like to be a person with bipolar disorder. Having all these visionary schemes and not really being able to do anything, just talk about stuff and have a lot of ideas and not being able to carry any of it out. So what is the point, of thinking about it and talking about it if one can't do that? So I'm thinking of ending the conversation with myself. It's kind of like a French movie where it just sort of ends. And yeah, there was something I wanted to say, but I forget. I think any movement to set oneself apart from everyone else is part of mental illness. And I think everything that I've been doing that I thought I was doing to show that it's something beyond that, some new algorithm or something good, has actually proven the other. It's proven that it's nothing. It's a bunch of words. And I'm not able to be grateful for where I am and who does support me and the support I have despite feeling like I'm a bad person in general, at least right now. So, yeah, sitting with the shame of that, sitting with the shame of all that I've created as a big story, really. And not knowing how to be around people and be kind. And I was in that space for a while, enjoying the moment, enjoying people around me and blah, blah, blah. And then moving into a space of trying to solve this mental illness, this big thing, when it's only solved through small actions. And I've talked about that, but instead of doing it, I just create more abstractions about abstractions and blah, blah, blah. And it's useless. And I'll probably get stuck in that again. I don't know. I don't know. I think I need to stop this relationship with myself and learn how to be with others without thinking that things could be better if they were a certain way or whatever the heck. It's very simple, but I've made it so complex that it's hard to go back to this sweet simplicity. And I don't know if this process is over. It's challenging for me to reconnect with my situation here and now, and I don't know if I'll be able to do the business class. Maybe I want to set up something else completely different, like photography, something that has nothing to do with words. I feel like doing embodied things like yoga and maybe finding a church, but all of that feels like escape. Feels like anything I'm doing, even if it's not escaping, is still kind of escaping. I really don't know. I really don't know. I'm supposed to work tomorrow maybe, and I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know anything. I kind of fear the side effects of the meds since I've been on the Hardy Nutritionals for a while. Just failed. And even wanting to talk about this is egoic. Can't escape it. I wanted to paint a different picture of people labeled with bipolar. I don't know. Which seems like a reaction, which seems like trying to do something, and then it becomes some big mission, some big motive to help people. And then that blows up and becomes, I need help. Made a lot of mistakes, and I don't know how to get dignity back. I wonder if the world will forgive all that has happened. I'm afraid of life. How is it that sometimes I can be so not afraid of life and living? And I've been living for this story I've been creating, and now that story's over, and I don't know. I don't know what's next. Yeah, I don't know if I should talk to myself anymore. Goodbye for now. I don't know what the next chapter will be. Sorry to disappoint that I wasn't able to create the story I thought I could. Can I live a small, simple, kind life, not trying to do more than I deserve to do? This is me accepting my mental illness. Or trying really hard to accept it after all the context I've created to talk myself out of it. And in doing that, and now feeling like this, it feels like I'm a bad person, and mental illness sometimes helps because it's an illness and it's hallucinations and stuff, but I think it's hard, and now going back to it is, I just feel like a bad person and sidestepping things, and I hope I can make it through. I really do. 'Cause I think there are a few people in this world that want me around. The end. I ended up going back to use the washroom, and now I'm back outside because I started to feel kind of, I noticed after eating 2 of these cookie-ish granola bar type things from Costco that I felt the buzzing, spinning energy coming back. And it felt really awful. So I'm not sure if I can have gluten or sugar or anything, because the other night I was eating some carby stuff, and then that might have been the night that I thought I was through it, or the day before might have been that. And then when I ate the carby stuff, I had such a horrible night. I couldn't sleep, and no amount of Seroquel would calm it down. I probably took like 4 or 5 or 6 Seroquel and 2 trazodone, and my throat dried out, and I felt like I could barely breathe, and my nasal passages were like closing over. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think fasting is good, or not eating processed stuff, because I don't know if it mixes well with the Seroquel, and I could be making stuff up like usual, but I noticed it because I haven't really had any of that kind of stuff for a couple of days, and then the spinny feeling in my energy field started coming back. So I just took another Seroquel. I don't know if that was my 2nd of the day or my 3rd. I can't even remember when I took the last one and the last one before that. I think I took one when I woke up. And I called to try and make an appointment with my psychiatrist. I'm trying to think of a plan that if I need space, I can go to a short stay place or something. And interestingly enough, I watched some TED Talks, a little bit here and there, that were kind of helpful perspectives. And then I looked at the, Shades of Awakening email. And there was a guy on there saying, I think his last name's Cole, I can't remember his first name, but he was saying something about saying there's no such thing as mental illness is bad. It's like saying it's all spiritual emergence or all mental illness or either or isn't good. And he wrote this blurb in the email that at this point resonates with me. I've been talking about, no mental illness for so long, or trying to move away from that, and maybe that's disowning the parts of me that aren't the greatest. I'm human, I make mistakes, and by trying to be all on the good side, it's creating this pile up of stuff that then really comes crashing down. And that's the thing, that I managed to look really well when I'm well, so people don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with me when there's a lot. And then by not owning those parts, it creates this resistance. And I think I've seen a lot of that this time. So yeah, it seems to continue that through technology, whatever I need to see to keep me going a little bit is there. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, I don't know if the energy is the food I ate or what, but my brain is really sensitive. I don't know if it's good to be up all day. I was in bed all night, all day yesterday, all night the night before. I'm not sure what else to say. I just wanted to share about that food thing. It didn't happen earlier when I had some pecans and a little bit of goat cheese, and before that I had a smoothie. I don't know if processed food is good for me right now. And I don't know if this goes with, well, taking something that isn't so great for my brain, something toxic to slow it down, if I'm still affirming wanting to live and be healthy by doing something healthy at the same time. I'm not sure. We shall see. I haven't uploaded any of my videos since this crisis started, and I don't plan on editing them or watching them again because I just don't want to see what I was saying. And I managed to shower the last 2 days, which is good. And I'm taking a Seroquel in the morning and one in the afternoon, evening time. And then I tried to take 2 last night to fall asleep, along with 900 milligrams lithium and 50 milligrams of trazodone, but I couldn't quite fall asleep, so I took another Seroquel. So I'm taking a lot of medications for me. And now that I'm a bit able to do some stuff, I'm kind of questioning what's next. But it's a big win to feel like maybe there is something next, because for many of the days I didn't know if there was going to be a tomorrow. And I'm still not quite convinced. I'm still struggling somewhat, because last night I took the meds and then I laid down right away to try to fall asleep, and I felt this fear and my heart was beating weird and it felt difficult to fall asleep. Like I kept falling asleep and then waking, like my whole body would just go and it was terrifying, but it didn't go on too long. And then yesterday morning I felt some fear when I woke up, and like panic and scariness, but it only lasted a short while. And luckily yesterday I got in to see my psychiatrist. And these are all things that I was hoping never to have to do again. And the universe has other plans, like usual. We can never really predict what's going to happen. And I could make up all sorts of reasons why this has happened, and I think it's something I'm going to have to deal with every 8.5 months until I figure out a different way to resolve it, because resolving it through good nutrition wasn't the answer. I've been thinking about that process, and I think it made it better and it made it worse. The nutrients, I feel like, made it easier to bear, but then it did get worse over time, but more slowly. So it put me sort of in a more challenging position, in that when it got really bad, it was really bad, but it took a longer time to get really, really bad. So my endurance, or my ability to bear that intensity, was stronger. So it was more intense, but it felt less intense, which is a strange feeling. And it also brought up a lot of past. It was like living in the past of all my lifetimes, and not knowing what's what and when and all that, and just absolutely terrifying. It's just absolutely, it feels like it's death right now. Terrifying. The feeling we must have the moment before we pass, if we have some awareness of that, if we're not sleeping or something, and however it works. But so yeah, that was really, really challenging, and it's not over. And being on these meds right now feels like my arms feel like they're gonna fall asleep, or like fall off my body. I feel like I need to shake them to give them some density or something. And I'll keep going with this, taking extra Seroquel, and I got a new prescription. I do have some meds left, but it's good, I think, to have some extra in case I can't see the doctor for a while, or blah, blah, whatever, I don't know. And I told my doctor the whole story, like being in California and having a bit of a crisis a month or so into it, and then deciding to taper off meds, and being off meds nearly 5 months, I think. Yeah, nearly 5 months. So I'm saying it's good to let my body have a break. And they said medications are a tool, and blah blah blah. And so it was nice that they didn't fully be like, you don't have insight, you weren't compliant, you went against what you should have done, and all this. They didn't judge me or blame me for that at all. So that was nice. And they even said, maybe you can taper off again, like when this crisis is over. And if this crisis thing is something that happens every 8.5 months, maybe you don't need the meds in between. so maybe you can taper off again. And I was like, okay, cool, that's awesome. And I don't even know how comfortable I feel with that. I'm going to take this Seroquel regime probably for at least 2 weeks. And I clicked on an Instagram live video of a friend that I used to know somewhat. And they're somebody that lived their life exactly how they want, it seems. One of the rare few who have managed to design a life like that. And he created, in the live video, he talked about how he created a documentary about Woodstock Fruit Fest because he's a fruitarian. I don't know if he's the organizer of that fruit festival, but he made a documentary, and so I signed up to get early viewing of that, and then I paid $20 donation to have access today. It'd be cool to see what he created and what he's up to, because I could be a fruitarian, I feel, if I lived in tropical climates. And I was looking through this information I had from the spiritual guy I studied with years ago, and it was I would take notes on what he was saying, but in the middle of it said something like colonics and raw food to heal mental illness. And maybe in the next video I'll show that little blurb, because I'm not going to edit this, so I'm not going to grab it now. But it's just a random side note that I don't know why I wrote it there. And when I did have 3.5 years of wellness, I was raw vegan for part of it. And I did get colonics too, actually, about 6 of them. And I experienced quite a long period of wellness before I went off my meds with the help of my doctor, with that permission. And then things started, this cycle of like 8 months-ish of wellness and a couple weeks of not so good health. And I could look back and say tapering off was a mistake, and that a lot of the things they've said in mental health have been true, even though I've negated them in my conversations with myself along the way about once you destabilize, it's harder to get and remain stable, because the first time I was destabilized, I went back on all the meds, but I've experienced a relapse. Here I am using all this medical language. Relapsed, an episode of the crisis every 6.5 to 8.5 months since, so 4 times. But yeah, so much to consider, and I think part of it is doing too much. And I listened to an interview with this guy, I think his name was something Cole, and he has a podcast called Waking Up Bipolar, and I saw the link to it on the Shades of Awakening first volume release of their little online magazine or something. And he was interviewing someone named Maria Hornbach, and she writes a lot of books and stuff about bipolar. And one of the things she mentioned in the talk, when I was kind of scrolling through it before I listened to most of it, was she said she finds she can have a really fascinating intellectual and like writing type life if the rest of her life is boring, meaning her actual life. So she can blog a lot and write books and all that and be really intellectually stimulated if in her life she walks, she hikes, and I can't remember what the third thing was, but they were just very basic things. So I'm wondering about trying that strategy. And the thing was, I talked about that with myself, I think, or at least I thought about that possibility and was thinking about that before I heard her say that. So the trend continues on that, about thinking something and then somebody else confirms it somehow. So I'm wondering, what kind of boring life can I create? Because I was designing a really non-boring life, like this trip that I wanted to go on as part of the launch of the business of celebrating being off meds for 9 months. And now I've failed at that, basically. I've totally failed. And that's part of what has made this episode more challenging, is that it wasn't just all the past trauma, guilt, and who did what, and what was the cause of this, and causality back to the Big Bang if you're going to try to find any cause or whatever. Can't really remember what I was saying, but something about, I think designing a boring life because, all the failure in the present moment of failing to be off the meds and then being on micronutrients and letting that process of like psychosis, I guess, take hold so deeply that made more deep awfulness come into consciousness, but then seeing how I created that by trying to accomplish a certain goal added extra guilt and shame and blame and cause and feeling like I didn't design my life properly. And coming back from California, I should have worked harder to have a really peaceful place and things like that. Thinking, wow, I should have known that. But then at the same time realizing this process has happened every 6.5 to 8.5 months, no matter what I do. And so being willing to use the tool of Seroquel, and it just seems like I'm afraid of the human world. And then I looked at the front page of the newspaper today, which I never do, but it said something about there's a proposal in to turn a beautiful forest, a big chunk of it, into a gravel pit for the next 50 years and trucking out gravel for the next 50 years. It's like, oh, maybe I just resonate more with nature, and I do. So maybe I want to do something with nature in the future as opposed to mental health advocacy. Something with animals or forests, or like, why not? Why do I have to keep going on this mental health talking trajectory? I can talk about how it affects my life, but maybe I've talked about the opposites of mental illness, so being engaged with those as opposed to being engaged with mental health. And I'm going to end this video so I can upload it one day without editing it and talk again in the next one. And the other thing I wanted to check out by donating to the Fruit Festival documentary movie is, here's a person that I know who's living a dream lifestyle and kind of made a documentary about part of it, which is cool. And I made all these videos with myself, and I was thinking, and I have thought maybe I could edit it into a documentary if I have a better computer one day, because I have said a lot of things that I'm not sure if I regret them, but they're very context specific to mental health, and they're very much reactions to whatever in the moment of reading whatever, or however, whatever I say. They're not necessarily ultimate truths. So there's probably a lot of them that I don't want to share. Or maybe I do, to show what a bipolar brain is kind of like. At least one bipolar brain. I can't speak for other people, even though I tried to speak for some kind of altruistic neuro tribe or something, but I didn't feel altruistic in these lower states of consciousness. I felt terrified and awful and like a terrible person and everything. So I think I need to resolve that terrible person feeling by really being an altruist, and again, stop talking about these little structures and ideas and thoughts, but do something as simple as volunteering at a food bank or something. And in my first 3.5 years after being diagnosed, I did have a simple life, and I did simple things and didn't get into all the machinations of everything, and I was a lot better. So can I have more wellness by doing that and not really going into the mental health stuff in my mind? And also, I had to bow out of facilitating the group because there's one more week of it, but I have not been able to feel well enough to go. I haven't driven since I've started taking the Seroquel. Or I did one time. I went to the park once when I thought I was on the mend and saying, yay, I'm through it, but I wasn't. I was also more about healthy body stuff when I was more well. Being present with people, which I've lost that somewhat because I've been talking with myself so much. But yeah, the thing with the Fruit Festival documentary, and I keep going on a tangent, is that when I paid the $20 donation, there were different donation levels, and $20 said opportunity to apply for filmmaker scholarship. And so maybe he's going to have some kind of program where he helps other people make film or show people how he edited the film or something. And that would be cool, because I think it would be cool to be a filmmaker of some kind. Do a documentary. And I don't want to go into what it could be, but do a documentary of some kind about something, like an important issue. And I saw Jason Silva's talk about how to find your passion, which was something like write down a bunch of stuff you're curious about, find the intersection of those, like where multiple curiosities lie, and then write down a bunch of problems in the world that need to be solved, and then figure out how one can use one's passions to solve that problem and affect 1 billion people. Something like that, which he got that formula from Stephen Kotler. And so yeah, I want to see how he edited the video by watching it, and he said he just started off with a bunch of footage. So yeah, I don't know, I have this feeling like my conversations with myself are only the beginning of seeding something else more important than machinating over machinations, and especially this time I've seen more of what could be at the root of why this so-called psychosis keeps repeating. Possibly, I don't know, but maybe if I can get to that root, then maybe it'll resolve, or if nothing at all, be some kind of value for the world. And I'm scared. I'm a coward. I've never stood up, really. I've shared my mental health journey story a few times, but I've never really stood up for myself. Yet at the same time, I've tried to protect myself by being kind of mean sometimes in my life. I don't know. So, yeah, that was interesting how I've seen my friend's live video possibility pop up, and I clicked on it today for the first time, and then he mentioned he has a documentary being released tonight, and then I signed up. So just clicking on that one thing changes my trajectory somewhat. And then whatever this filmmaker scholarship is, I'm thinking that he'll elaborate on it in the movie or in some kind of correspondence, because it might be kind of cool to be a filmmaker or just continue what I'm doing, because anytime I make some kind of formula, I forget about it, or it's challenging to live up to it. But I think I really, really, really this time need to be aware of things that I know that are not good for me to go into, like talking more about mental health. I'll still talk to myself on video, I think, about it. But I don't know. I just, like, what are the opposites? What is a life that mental health stuff fades away? But I do feel like I really need to live very simply and consider how I want to live my life next, which could be different than this really complex trip. And I don't know if it's good to be out creating all this beautiful chaos and synchronicity by myself, because then I have to go tumbling into lower levels of consciousness, because it shows me why, like, what I have not yet resolved or what I'm missing. Like, don't forget about this, don't forget about that, blah. These are all the reasons why you can't have a really happy and magical life all the time without falling into the awfulness. And I'm feeling there could be a way to resolve that, but and the beauty is still there. It's harder to see it when I'm on Seroquel. It's harder to see it when I'm in those lower states and just laying in bed. Obviously, that's not beauty, but it's still there. Yesterday, I was going to talk with a friend on FaceTime, so I walked into the backyard, and I wanted to stand in the sun, but half the yard was shaded because of the house. So I walked beyond the shade, and then kept walking just a bit, and I just looked down, and there's a 4-leaf clover. And I took a little video of the clover out in the grass, but I'm not planning on editing that in to this video, because my brain has very little capacity for all that right now. So when I have more capacity in my brain, I'll upload them like I did, and it's easy to do because they're below the 15 minutes, and then they're in order, and they still have the date on them in my camera roll. So I have the clover here, though. I did keep it. So this clover was sort of sitting there like this, towering over the other clovers, and I thought maybe it's not a clover, but all there was around it was clover. And I've never found a 4-leaf clover before in my entire life. Not that I go looking for them every day, but I have looked in a clover patch if I see clover to see if there's any 4-leaf clovers. This time I wasn't even looking though. That's the thing, things catch my eye when I'm in a more clear-minded state. And they still do, it seems, even when on Seroquel. The beauty's still there. And so the universe sends me these signs, or not sends these signs, but it's still there to see no matter what. Even in these horrible inner experiences, there's still beauty everywhere. So it was nice that I saw that I saw the 4-leaf clover, and I talked to a friend from California last night for the first time in a long time, and that was nice. So I'm really lucky. And also, I colored this picture. It's not quite finished yet. But coloring is something that I would probably do at least for 5 minutes in the psych ward, but this took me quite a few hours. It's the most I've ever colored, I think. But something simple. The brain needs these simple activities. So yeah, not totally through it. Still in this state, I'm able to see that there's a lot of meaning out there, and I can see the beauty and the magic of the 4-leaf clover. And then the other day, sitting on the deck and a hummingbird flying right up to my face for a while. So the universe is asking if I'm able to see the joy and be in that joy. And I've listened to a couple of great talks, one by Jean Houston, a promo podcast for her Quantum Superpowers course, which I'm not going to take, but everything she said in that talk totally resonated with me. It just seems like I'm not able to step into that. And that's okay. And like I said, for now, I need to purposefully do less. Have a very boring and safe type of life for probably the next couple months. So I will end this video and go on to the next. One thing I want to explore, or something I can do, because now that I won't be creating all these words about lifestyle design, having transcended and all that hopeful dream stuff of a possible future one day maybe, how am I going to fill my time? And time has slowed down. Feels like there's more time again to some extent, but I won't be doing those same things because it puts my brain into a certain state that is creative, and then it falls back and comes out of that really creative energy, which is living in a different dimension, really. Because the way of interacting really is based on the past. It's like, what happened yesterday? And it's not as creative. So I don't want anymore to talk like one is better than the other, and because it really is part of to put oneself above another is to, in a way, feel like one's more powerful or better or something is part of the whole problem of the world that creates this. So to do that in the context of one who has so-called bipolar disorder has a super creative brain, which might imply better, but if you take the whole of it into consideration, it's not necessarily better. It's a different biorhythm, a different rhythm, but it's not better. It's different. It's a different brain, just like somebody on the spectrum has a different brain. Doesn't mean they're less or better or worse than somebody who has a brain that appears to be what is considered so-called normal, whatever that means. And I do still feel that the uniqueness is important. Well, it is. People are whatever. I've talked about all that, at length. What I'm saying is to say that a brain is better as part of the better, worse, right, wrong, and all of that. So I again need to teach myself to speak in different ways. To think that my brain sometimes is better or more creative. Then my brain goes into states that are absolutely horrific, where I might end my life, or this hasn't happened lately, but in the beginning, before I understood things, there was a time when I thought I might hurt somebody, and I was like horrified. So, and that could be more amplified from seeing how the current ways of operating eventually leads to harming someone else, even very subtly with a thought or a look or a gesture. And I've talked about all that, I think. But what I'm saying is I can't have this, I want my brain to be creative perspective in my head and projecting that as an ideal. I need to be more present and not judge conversations as mundane or and I don't do that overtly in my brain, but it's implied in the way that I was being creative with myself and talking to myself and typing up plans of lifestyle design with myself, like me in my life, and then forgetting about everything around me now in the here and now. So too much future then pulled me back into equal and opposite past in a way. So is there a way to prevent that? Is there a way to maybe not even look at all that stuff I typed up this time around? And let it unfold if it does, but don't revisit it and read it. And so this applies to the business class I'm still registered for. And that was another thing I didn't talk about, was how I was planning to stop doing mental health stuff on November 6th. Well, the universe stopped it preemptively beforehand even more. So the business class, I'm supposed to be creating like mental health advocate business. And I still might. And I am intending to. That's what I'm supposed to do by being in the class, but I'm hoping that something else will arise as something viable that I can do that isn't related to that exactly, because I don't know if I want to talk about mental health anymore. For the first 3.5 years of this journey, before I had a so-called relapse, I didn't talk about mental health. I just lived my life. I was around a lot of people with a diagnosis, but we were just living our lives and having fun and enjoying things, not thinking about how to change it. Or I feel like that's what I've carried in my heart a long time since I've been doing more research, is like, I want out of this. I want other people to heal from this. So it's a movement away from what is and what's actual, and maybe it's just a change of perspective back to really enjoying being with others and all the people I've met through the paradigm. I really love everyone. So that's been such a blessing in my life. And that's the thing too about all this talk with myself this last year or so, is a lot of it is resisting the system and the negative aspects, where like 99% of the time I was having fun and enjoying the people and everything. So it wasn't really accurate that it was bad. It was more that one bad psych ward experience, which this experience this time out of the psych ward after taking micronutrients was almost as bad as the psych ward experience. So it's making me rethink, was it really the psych ward, or was it more my internal state getting projected onto that situation? Which again happened this time in some ways because I'm not in like a sanctuary type environment. So of course things get projected onto the external based on my internal state. So that's part of why I'm feeling like there's no cause, there's no fault, except for I'm at fault. And I don't know why I'm thinking in those ways, but I'm starting to feel some energy in my stomach, so I don't know if I should talk about this anymore. Anyways, yeah, so I don't want to have that perspective of angry person who's trying to transcend. I'm really sorry if I said things about people along the way who are doing their best with their reality. And I said those things from this high horse perspective of, oh, I've transcended and stuff. I haven't transcended anything. I need to learn action in the moment, be kind in the moment, be kind to other people, because kindness from other people is the only thing that has helped me and saved me along the way. Kindness from strangers. And as much as I'd like to think that there's bad things that happen, there's a lot of good. And these last 7 years, almost 6.5 years since I was diagnosed with a mental illness, my life has been mostly really, really good. I've been really lucky. And I'm grateful. So one other thing I'm going to explore is, I think it was close to a year ago now, I bought a music making masterclass presented by Dead Mouse. And I didn't watch very many of the videos, but I think I need to switch from this that I've been doing to making some kind of art, making music. Like, if, for example, I created one song that was good in some way, that would likely have more profound effect than all of this year or so of talking. And it would be more fun, and it would be a smaller output in terms of final thing to share. In terms of length, it might be 5 minutes instead of 200 hours. I've spent the year bitching and complaining, and when it's not, and so much of it stemmed from that negative psych ward experience, and then I complained about that, and I almost want to apologize. I really need to be aware of what I'm doing now and try and apologize for whatever this is, whatever's going on. So yeah, music. Art, less words, less reading, the art of living, kind of most of the things that I've talked about, but actually doing them and not spending all this time talking to myself. I will keep talking to myself, but not to the same extent. And maybe I'll move into doing a documentary film about something like hummingbirds or nature or I don't know what. So that's all for now, I think. I'm going to go shower. I'm grateful that this process seems to be mostly over. See you later. So today is probably one of the last beautiful days of the year. It's quite hot in the sun. And I'm sitting outside specifically because I did a little experiment with my Muse brain sensing headband. I put it on the other day when I was really, really distressed and it felt like my head was vibrating. And it showed that it really was vibrating. The temporal lobe points were quite rigid, and maybe I'll edit them in here, even though I haven't really done video editing in a while. So today I did the same thing, and my temporal lobes were not as bad, but it was really like rigid. So then I came outside with bare feet and stood in the sun, and the pattern changed completely. And then I was trying to see if it was from earthing or if it was from the sun or what. So I went into the shade on the cement, and the temporal lobe pattern again became kind of quite rigid or quite liney. It looks way more aggravated and activated. And then I went back in the sun. So it's not just the earth, it's the sun too. I did a few different trials of walking around and seeing what combination did what. So in knowing that my temporal lobes are quite overactive right now, I think that's part of the process that's going on. And then knowing that being in the sun with my feet on the grass, makes it somewhat better, then I'm wondering how to heal this, and this is a way, unless this is avoiding, I don't know, but it's good for the body, I think. And yesterday, I filled my prescription for lithium and trazodone and Seroquel. And I'm wondering about starting on Zoloft again, because I'm feeling quite depressed and like it's hard to get things done. And of course, that's not ideal. I am going to stay on 4 caps of the micronutrients a day, and maybe add the Zoloft in, hoping that I'll be able to get off the Seroquel that way. And this all really sucks, and there's a lot to talk about around it. I feel like I need to convince my subconscious mind not to edit me out of this reality. And all the meaning and perspective I created for myself the last year or so, at this point feels meaningless. And it is meaningless the moment I say it, so that's fine, but I really do feel like I'm fighting for my life, though. I feel like it's more so I'm a bad person and I've been ignoring things. But then I wouldn't necessarily say that's true for everyone that experiences this, so maybe it isn't that. And last night I watched the World Series game for baseball, and that was really good. And yeah, even if I go back on all these meds, and which I am, hopefully I can create a new life and identity for myself after this crisis. This crisis made things a lot clearer. I feel like I did convince myself it's not mental illness, it's the brain dealing with trauma. So complex. Yesterday I got some coconut eggnog, and I watched the documentary on the fruit festival. That was really good. And today a psychotherapy and spirituality summit starts online, so I might listen to some of that. And I did buy the iPhone today. Can't remember if I said that or not. So I think I'm assuming I'm going to live through this. I would like to. Like I said, I need to convince myself that I'm worthy of life,